Hello, welcome back to our countdown to Christmas. Today is the 10th of December and we've got another Necron video for you where we're pitting one unit up against the other, talk about why they're good, why they're bad, and I'm going to choose one of these units as if I was trying to make a list around one of those said units. Now in yesterday's video we talked about 3 Locust Heavy Destroyers going up against a Doom Scythe, so if you've missed that one, find it in the playlist or I'll put it in the top right of your screen now. But as for today's video, we're going to be talking about the Canoptek Scarabs versus the Tomb Blades. Couple of point scoring units, really good for secondaries as well as our primaries, so I thought I'd compare them today, so roll the transition. So what I'm going to do for today's video, I'm going to take 4 Canoptek Scarabs which will actually cost us 60 points, and I'm going to be taking 3 Tomb Blades which will also cost us 60 points, but that is at base cost. There are some upgrade options for the Tomb Blades, so we have to take that into consideration throughout the video. So yeah, 4 Canoptek Scarabs, 3 Tomb Blades. So yeah, let's get on with comparing the units, starting off with their stat line. So there's a couple of statistics that the Canoptek Scarabs will win at. First of all, it's the amount of wounds they've got. When you've got 4 wounds per model, and you've got 4 of these in our mini unit if you like, that's going to be 16 wounds. Whereas with the Tomb Blades, they've only got 2 wounds per model, and if you're taking 3 of them, that's of course only 6. So quite a lot more wounds with the Scarabs, and also the same applies to the attacks. 4 attacks per Canoptek Scarab, that's 16 attacks for the 4, whereas Tomb Blades have only got 1 apiece. They don't really want to be in melee anyway. That will be something we mentioned in the disadvantages section, but with a unit of 3 of them, that's only going to be 3 attacks. That's the Scarabs. What about the Tomb Blades? What are they better at in terms of their statistics? Well, first of all, the movement is 14 inches and not 10. 10 is pretty good, but 14 is absolutely rapid. So that's the first difference. The second difference is the weapon skill and ballistic skill is a 3+, not a 4+, because they are not Canoptek. Tomb Blades are always hitting on a 3+, which is nice. They're starting off at strength 4 as opposed to strength 3. Again, does that matter too much? They're not really a melee unit. And the toughness, which is probably the most important part here, toughness 5, whereas the Canoptek Scarabs are only toughness 3. And then finally we come on to the actual armor save of these models. The Tomb Blades have got a 4+ armor save with the option of a 3+, which we'll talk about in a bit, whereas the Canoptek Scarabs are only on a 6+ armor save. Of course they make up for it in terms of their wounds, but out of the 2 units I think I prefer the Canoptek Scarabs datasheet as opposed to the Tomb Blades datasheet. Yes, there are a lot more better stats within the Tomb Blades datasheet, but you need to remember what the general purpose is for these units. They're there to be scoring points. We will talk about that also in the purposes section of this video, but they're likely going to be taking a bit of damage, and I personally prefer having a lot more wounds than better toughness and armor save. So I'm going to give that point to the Canoptek Scarabs. Onto the abilities next. Well, the Canoptek Scarabs don't have any abilities, so we're going to skip straight over them. But Tomb Blades, however, they have the evasion engrams, which is a -1 to hit them at range. Because they're so quick when they're moving 14, if you're trying to shoot them, it's a -1 hit penalty. That's not too bad, just don't want them getting caught out in melee, that's all. Now there are some war gear options that are also available to the Tomb Blades. There's 3 in fact. First of all is the Nebuloscope, so the unit that you're targeting at range cannot use any cover. Not too bad, I tend to not bother with that one to be honest with you. Second one is Shadow Loom for a 5+ invulnerable save. That one is kind of useful, because with a 4+ armor save they do go down quite quickly. Or if you wanted to upgrade that 4+ to a 3+, you've got the option of the Shield Veins. Now remember, you're paying 3 points per model, so if you've got a unit of 3 of them, that's going to be 9 points. But yeah, that one's an easy point I think for the Tomb Blades. Next we're going to talk about the damage output. Starting off with those Canoptek Scarabs. So when you've got a unit of 4 of them, as we have in this video, that's going to be 16 attacks. Now if you've got a larger unit, they're going to be doing much better against high toughness units such as toughness 8 even, because 6 is automatically wound. So it doesn't matter what the toughness is in fact, they're going to be doing a bit of work on those larger models. However, in this situation we've only got 4. With 16 attacks, hitting on 4s, you're likely going to be dropping half the dice right there, and then you're only at strength 3 on top of that. So yeah, you can't expect too much on the damage front from the Canoptek Scarabs when they're in a unit of 4 of them. When you've got a unit of 9 of them, it's a whole different story. For example, you've got 36 attacks there, with an average of 6 that auto wound. Then you can throw in 1 or 2 more for the rest of the actual hits that didn't auto wound but can still score actual wounds from dice rolls. So yeah, they can do a fair amount of work in a larger unit, but in this case they are only a 4-man unit. Now as for the Tomb Blades, I'm going to display this on the screen for you because they've got a few weapon options as well as the actual war gear options, so I thought I'd display this one just to compare and show you some of the figures. So these of course are average figures. This is dice after all, it doesn't always work the way that averages work, but I'm going to show you what these are about against certain toughnesses. In fact, I probably should explain what the weapons are before doing this. So the Particle Beam is at 18-inch range, Assault 6, Strength 5 but no AP, only 1 damage. That one is a free option. The Twin Gorse Blasters are 5 points, which are 30-inch range, Rapid Fire 2, It is still strength 5, but it's minus 2 AP this time, so you're getting the extra AP, although you do have less shots. That one's 1 damage. Or the twin Tesla carbine, also 5 points, 24-inch range. Assault 4, so you're guaranteed the 4 shots, that's strength 5. No AP, but you've got exploding 6s, so you're likely getting more hits with that. So with that information, we can now look at this screen. Going up against toughness 3 to toughness 4, if you're taking the particle beamer, that's the 6-shot option with no AP, on average you're going to be scoring around 8 wounds with a 3-man unit. Now if you're taking the twin Gauss blasters against those same targeted units, so toughness 3, toughness 4, you're going to be getting on average 5.3 wounds within rapid fire range, or 2.7 wounds if you're not within rapid fire range, or with the twin Tesla carbine, you're looking at 8 wounds. So at first glance you might think, well, why would I take the twin Gauss blaster against toughness 3 or toughness 4? Now just remember that these averages are before any armor saves are made, so the advantage of actually having a twin Gauss blaster is at the minus 2 AP, whereas the other 2 weapons don't have any AP. So if you're going up against Space Marines, I would still take the Gauss blasters. You want that minus 2 AP, but anything else with a low armor save, the other 2 weapons are perfectly fine. Now going up against toughness 5, particle beamers are 6 wounds, twin Gauss blasters are 4 wounds at rapid fire range, or 2 wounds without rapid fire range, and again 6 with the Tesla carbine. And finally, toughness 6 to toughness 9, particle beamers are doing 4 wounds, twin Gauss blasters 2.7 or 1.3 at non-rapid fire range, and 4 wounds with the twin Tesla carbine. Long story short, they're all pretty much very identical, so for me it comes down to the ranges, because the ranges are all different. It's why a lot of people tend to take the upgraded options, because they've got a better range. So the twin Gauss blaster, yes it is 30-inch range, but you're only getting 2 shots with that, whereas at 15-inch range of course you're getting the rapid fire. I personally would select the twin Tesla carbines. I think that's the best overall range at 24. You're guaranteed the 4 shots at 24-inch range, and then of course if you take any of the dynasties that add to the range, even better. But yeah, long story short, I think the Tomb Blades are quite comfortably winning that on the damage front. Let's talk about some unique synergy next, starting off with the Canoptek Scarabs. Well, of course you've got the Canoptek Spiders with the Scarab Hive ability to be bringing back one of them Scarab models every single turn. Nice. You've also got the Canoptek Control Node from your Technomancer for a +1 to their hit roll. They're probably better served on the Spiders and the Wraiths rather than the Canoptek Scarabs, but you do have the option of that synergy. And finally, a few little stratagems for the Scarabs. First of all, the Enslaved Protector stratagem for heroic intervention, or the self-destruction stratagem. You can blow up a Scarab and they'll deal D3 mortal wounds or a flat 3 if you roll a 6+. In fact, we've also got the Army of Renown to mention, which is Cult of the Cryptek. Of course, these guys have got the Canoptek keyword, so they're eligible to be selected for that Army of Renown. And there is a stratagem available to them, which is the Swarm Descends. It allows your Scarab to have the Deep Strike ability, which is quite unique because you can't do that in the standard Necron Codex. As for Tomb Blades, first of all, they are core. They're going to be relating to a lot of things. I mean, most things in the Codex are core, but the Canoptek Scarabs are not core, so that is one big advantage to the Tomb Blades. So for example, you can take the Catacomb Command Barge, use My Will Be Done for a +1 to the hit roll. Maybe you're using the Relentless March Aura for a +1 to their movement. There's lots of other things that relate to core, but they are quite fast, so they don't need all those things like the Veil of Darkness Relic and stuff like that. But then there are some stratagems. Disintegration Capacitors, of course, auto wounding on 6s with the Gauss weapons. Better served when you've got a full unit of 9 of them as opposed to 3, but we'll mention that for you today. Also the Malevolent Arcing stratagem if you're taking the Tesla carbines to be throwing out mortal wounds at your target. And finally, I like to mention the Solar Pulse stratagem to remove the benefits of cover to your opponent. Yes, you could buy that as part of your war gear with the Nebuloscopes, but I think it's better just to spend 1 command point and use it when it is needed. But for the overall synergy, I think this time I'm going to go with the Canoptek Scarabs. I think the Canoptek keyword is pretty key, especially when you're taking Canoptek Spiders and the Technomancer. I really like that synergy. So yeah, I'm going to give that point to the Scarabs. Right, Resiliency next. The Canoptek Scarabs are 16 wounds with toughness 3, and that's with 4 models, whereas the Tomb Blades, they've got 6 toughness 5 wounds with 3 models, and both units have got the rights of reanimation ability, but it's much easier to reanimate a Tomb Blade than it is to reanimate a Canoptek Scarab. However, like I said in the intro, I really like the fact that they got 4 wounds apiece with the Scarabs, and I would select them over the Tomb Blades over Resiliency. I think the Tomb Blades go down really easy. Once you've got a -2 AP weapon targeting your Tomb Blades, they go down. Right, overall purpose, starting off with the Canoptek Scarabs, they're going to be there to screen your more expensive units, whether it's Catan Shards, whether it's just Spiders. It could just be things such as your Silent King, in fact, but they're a good screening off unit. And it doesn't necessarily mean screening off for your models, it could be screening off Deep Strike, maybe Strategic Reserves. So yeah, overall they're a really good screen. They're there to also take the Smite attacks and other mortal wound damage because they'll potentially be the closest eligible unit. You don't want, say, the Nightbringer taking a Smite attack from a Psyker when you've got a 15-point Scarab that can do that just the same. What I personally like to do with these guys is give them objectives secured. Because they're pretty quick and pretty resilient because of the amount of wounds they got, they can steal objectives and score you points, deny them points. So yeah, they're really good for the points game. Which brings me on to the next point, which is actually the Ancient Machinery secondary objectives that we've got available. These guys are really good for that too. Now the Tomb Blaze, what is the general purpose of the Tomb Blaze? They're decent at killing off light infantry, I guess, with their weapons, but with the 3-man team, yeah, you're not going to remove too much. They're useful for things such as R&D, or maybe again Ancient Machineries because of the speed that these guys have got, and maybe also useful for scoring behind enemy lines or engaging all fronts as well. Because of that 14-inch movement, yeah, they can be getting right across the battlefield with ease. So before making my pick, we're going to be talking about the advantages and disadvantages of both of these units, starting off with the Canoptek Scarabs. Remember, there's 4 of them here. First of all, they're cheaper per model, 15 points a pop. They've got more wounds per model, they've got more attacks per model, and they're semi-useful in melee, which is obviously much better than the Tomb Blades because they're absolutely useless in melee. They're great to tie up units, and they're our cheapest screening unit in the Codex. They've got the Canoptek Synergy, and of course they've got the Cult of the Cryptek as an option with the Army Renown. As for the disadvantages, well, they're not as quick. They're only moving 10 inches, I say only, that's still pretty good, but they're not moving 14. They're hitting on 4s because they're Canoptek. They're only toughness 3, which kind of sucks against strength 6 weaponry. They've only got a 6+ armor save, which sucks against any AP. And finally, they're offering nothing at range. That's the Canoptek Scarabs. As for the Tomb Blades, advantages are, well, they're much quicker. 14-inch range, they're hitting on a 3+, that easily can go down to a 2+ with the Mind Will Be Done ability because they're a core unit. They are toughness 5. They've got lots of different war gear options as well as ranged options. -1 to hit them at range, which is nice. They're attacking at range, which is also nice, something that the Canoptek Scarabs cannot do. And they're just much easier to reanimate if you're using reanimation protocols. Disadvantages, well, they've got less wounds overall, only 2 per model. And with a unit of 3 of them, that's only 6 wounds. They're offering very little in melee. I say very little because they've still got 1 attack each, but yeah, they're not going to do much with that. They're of course more expensive per model, and they're less likely going to be using some synergy because they're so fast. They're likely going to be speeding away from units such as your Necron Overlords, your Lords, your Royal Wardens perhaps. I mean, your Catacomb Command Barge I guess can keep up with them, but yeah, 14-inch movement, eventually they're going to take off. And finally, they're less useful in terrain due to the biker keyword, whereas the Canoptek Scarabs have got the beast keyword, so they can be moving through terrain, and the Canoptek Scarabs only need to dip their toes into an area of terrain to get the benefits, whereas with the Tomb Blades they need to hide their base in order for that terrain feature to be active for them. So this is the part of the video where I've got to make a decision. Am I going with the 4 Canoptek Scarabs or the 3 Tomb Blades? Now you probably already guessed this, guys, because you know one of my most favourite units within the Codex is the Canoptek Scarabs, and the thing that wins it for me is the general purpose of what these guys are actually doing. A lot of people quite like to use Tomb Blades to score objectives, but I don't think they're resilient enough, especially against melee based factions. If you've got, say, an Orc Boy unit, or you've got some Khorne Berserkers that are coming after your objective, the chances are you're going to lose those Tomb Blades because you've either got to fall back and then you're going to have to concede that objective anyway, whereas the Canoptek Scarabs can at least take some damage for a turn. They will eventually die, of course, they're not immortal, but they're going to deny some points, possibly score you some points on your primaries in your own turn, and then they will eventually die. So yeah, Canoptek Scarabs for me, guys. Let me know down in the comments which one you would select, and also remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel in order to be within a chance of winning this command box set. Other than that, guys, all that's left to say, thank you all for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.